Welcome to Monday Night Travel, everyone, and happy Juneteenth. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the honor of serving as your moderator this evening as we stop by sunny Sevilla and discuss how to make experiences abroad more accessible. All right, so for today's Monday Night Travel show, it's going to be a little bit different. Most often our shows provide deep dives into a specific region and give on-the-ground travel tips. But tonight we're going to focus a little bit more on why we travel, the lessons we learn while we travel, and how we can make those lessons more available to more people in our communities. We here at Rick Steves Europe believe that travel is a great force for peace in our world. It introduces us to the other 96% of humanity. It shows us how different societies grapple with similar problems. It teaches us that we have more in common than differences. And by traveling, we create a global community that is more open-minded and understanding. And there's never a better opportunity to create open-minded people than when they are young. So sending our students abroad is hugely important, and making those study abroad opportunities accessible to as many students as possible is extremely important, which is why I am so glad to have with us tonight Lamar Shambley, who is the founder of Teens of Color Abroad. Lamar, welcome to Monday Night Travel. We're so glad to have you.
Thanks so much, Gabe. I am incredibly happy to be here.
Well, Lamar, you and I have a lot in common because I used to be a high school Spanish teacher. You currently are a high school Spanish teacher, which means that my first question has to be, how are you holding up? Are you going to make it to the end of the school year?
Oh, I'm holding on, Gabe. I'm holding on. We only have a couple more days left. So as of next Friday, I will be done with my 10th year in the classroom.
Wow. Well, I mean, so did you start teaching when were you a child prodigy? Did you start teaching when you were 17? You don't look like you've been teaching for 10 years.
Yeah, it's my skincare routine. I keep everything fresh. But yeah, I started teaching sort of right out of college, and I've been here ever since. And it's one of the best jobs in the world.
Well, we are so happy to have you with us. And if educating the next generation wasn't work enough, you've also founded an organization called Teens of Color Abroad. We're going to hear quite a bit about it this evening, but I was hoping you could just give us a quick, in a nutshell, what is Teens of Color Abroad?
Absolutely. Teens of Color Abroad, also known as TOCA, is a nonprofit organization that creates language learning and cultural exchange opportunities for high school students of color. And so our hope is we give these students this opportunity so that they can continue to look for global opportunities in college and beyond.
All right. Well, I am very excited to hear about both your experiences abroad and the experience that you facilitate for these students. And I also know that later on in the show, we have some extremely special guests. So I'm eager to get going, and I am going to get out of the way and turn things over to you. See you in the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabe. And thank you all, everyone, for joining. I can say hands down, this is the biggest Zoom call I have ever been on. And so I am incredibly thankful to each of you for joining us. It is a Monday night, at least here on the East Coast. You could be anywhere, but the fact that you're here to learn more about TOCA, you'll hear me to refer to Teens of Color Abroad as TOCA. The fact that you're here to learn more about this is incredible. So thank you so very much. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our presentation. First, I want to sincerely thank our sponsors and donors for making this experience possible for our students. So I have to say thank you to Ascend Public Schools, the Ida and William Rosenthal Foundation, the Pincus Family Foundation, Cyril Taylor Charitable Foundation, Global Citizens Association, the Winters Group, and Base Travel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Secondly, once again, I want to thank each of you for joining us here on this call. I know that a majority of us are no longer teenagers, and maybe even some of you don't identify as a person of color. But what unites us all across racial lines and across age differences is our love for travel and connecting with people across the globe. I think everyone on this call can remember the first time that they traveled abroad and how that experience is embedded in everything that we do today. And so I'm really excited to share more about TOCA and how this experience has inspired our students. I have to start with this photo of me. This is me when I was in 9th grade. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with two things. One, I was obsessed with hip hop music, as you can tell by my Wu Wear hoodie. But this is also when I began studying Spanish. There was language, there's culture, there was music in my Spanish class. And I had just sort of sought refuge in that classroom. I would eventually download Spanish hip hop songs, translate them into English, learn new vocab so that I could add that vocabulary to my AP Spanish essays. And so I was the star Spanish student throughout my middle school and high school experience. And so I had always dreamed of being able to travel, but it remained a dream. I didn't have a passport. No one in my immediate family had ever traveled out of the country. And so I went to college with this dream in my back pocket, fully intending to turn it into a reality. And so fast forward, I went to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, where my dream burned brighter. My sophomore year, I was accepted into a medical mission trip to the Dominican Republic. I saw the price tag and I immediately ruled it out. I went to the trip leader here in this photo, Dr. Ade, and I said, Dr. Ade, thank you so much for accepting me on this opportunity, but I don't have a passport. I've never traveled out of the country. And he said, well, why didn't you say anything to me? And slid his credit card to me and said, I will make sure that you get your first passport. I will make sure that you travel to the Dominican Republic with us. I see your passion and I want to make it happen. And so it took one educator in my corner to knock down this seemingly insurmountable barrier for me to access international opportunities. And so had an incredible 2-week experience in the Dominican Republic, and I was bit by the bug. Fast forward to 2009, I applied for a grant through the US Department of State called the Benjamin Gilman Scholarship. And I also applied for scholarships through William and Mary to spend a semester in Sevilla, Spain. I lived with the Homestay family. I took university courses in Spanish. And thanks to the cheap airfare from some airlines, I was able to travel to Italy, the Netherlands, Morocco, England, and even explore Andalusia, Spain's southernmost region. And Sevilla in the spring blew my mind, from the fragrant orange and jasmine blossoms blooming throughout the city to Semana Santa, here in this photo, watching Nazarenos, as they're called, during Holy Week, march through the streets handing out caramelos or caramels to little children. Now, you can imagine how frightened I was to see these Nazarenos in their costumes because of what I had known from American history. But I quickly learned that what I was familiar with was very different than what was in front of me. And so that semester in Sevilla, Spain in 2009 changed my life. I made lifelong friendships with Sevillanos and other international students, friendships that still exist to this day. I also found a deeper joy in learning. We bridged our classroom studies with visiting historic sites that told Sevilla's history way better than simply reading about it. During these 6 months, I couldn't help but to notice that there weren't many American students that looked like me. And now 10 plus years after that semester abroad, I became a high school Spanish teacher where I have the immense privilege every day to stand in front of students who look like me and who come from my same community, and to get them excited about traveling the world. I guess in some ways I became the Rick Steves of the classroom, but I wanted my students to see language learning and travel as tools for personal growth and, honestly, freedom. In my role as a high school Spanish teacher, I began researching language learning and study abroad participation and noticed some startling details. One, in the US, we don't prioritize language learning. Only 20% of US K-12 students are enrolled in a foreign language course. And also two, very few students of color, especially Black and African American students, participate in these experiences. But the possibilities are endless. Studying a language leads to increased academic achievement, greater cognitive development, and developing more positive attitudes toward people that speak other languages and people from other cultures. Studying abroad increases students' intercultural skills, their flexibility, their adaptability, their self-awareness, their curiosity and confidence. Furthermore, there's data that shows that when students of color, especially Black and African American students, when they study abroad, they have higher chances of graduating from college within 4 years compared to those who don't. And so these possibilities inspired me to create TOCA. And so since launching TOCA in 2018, we've sponsored new passports for 20 students. We've served over 1,000 youth across the US with our virtual and in-person initiatives. And we've provided nearly $200,000 in scholarships. And we do this in a few ways. In 2019, we launched a Passport Pathway campaign where we've provided students from Title I schools. Title I schools are schools that mostly service students from low-income backgrounds. We provided them with the necessary document that they need, so as they go to college, they will be able to access study abroad opportunities. In the summer of 2020, when the pandemic took over, we quickly adapted to this virtual world like a lot of organizations, and we partnered with an organization called Natakalam to create TOCA Online, which is a virtual language learning and cultural exchange program where high school students of color study Arabic, Spanish, or French from refugee conversation partners dispersed throughout the world. Our virtual programs expanded to include cooking classes, encouraging our students to have global experiences from the comfort of their homes. Survey data shows that our program increases students' desire to study other languages, pursue international careers, and even consider different cultural perspectives than their own. And so here's a photo of one of our students. We learned how to make what's called papas a la huancaína. We had a Peruvian cooking class. We had a Senegalese cooking class where we learned how to make fonio mango salad. We had an Indian cooking class, Syrian cooking class where we made a traditional shakriya. And so again, it was really incredible to have this experience during one of our more isolated times. And also for me as an educator to get to establish a mentorship with other young people across the country. Some students I haven't had the ability to meet who reached out to me through email to say, hey, Mr. Shambley, I love this TOCA online program. I'm going to college next year. I want to study abroad. Could you write me a college recommendation letter? Where I could write them a college recommendation letter. Some of our students have gone on to college and access study abroad opportunities. And so it's been incredible to see how we created this virtual space and how it translated into the real world. And then last year, we launched our pilot high school study abroad program in Seville, Spain, where I was inspired to begin my journey. So I'd like to show for you a short video of our experience. And in this video, you'll see students exploring the Alhambra in Granada, get lost in the maze garden in the Real Alcázar in Sevilla, kayaking the Guadalquivir River, and so much more.
Bienvenidos a Sevilla.
Now, I'm incredibly partial, but Seville is a beautiful place for first-time European visitors. With its rich history, beautiful architecture, and friendly people, it's absolutely true when they say Sevilla es una maravilla. And here's a photo of Seville's iconic La Giralda. What I love about this is the history of this minaret. This is a beautiful blend of what they call mudéjar architecture and also Catholic architecture as well. This is in the center of Sevilla, right next to the Catedral. And so during our 2-week program, the students quickly learned that Sevilla can feel like a labyrinth with its narrow cobblestone and winding streets. On the first day of getting there, we quickly learned that we are far, far away from the bustling streets of New York City. And so during this 2-week experience, our students took over 30 hours of small group Spanish language and culture training with Centro Mundo Lengua. And Centro Mundo Lengua is the school that I studied abroad with when I was a young student in Seville, Spain. And so this was a full circle moment for me where I got to introduce my students to the teachers that inspired me to become a high school Spanish teacher. Now, in our classes, our students push themselves to speak mostly in Spanish during this experience. After a couple of weeks of intensive language training, our students became more comfortable listening and speaking in the language. Their professor, Juan Alberto, pushed them to step outside of their comfort zones, bringing them to the streets for scavenger hunts where they had to stop and ask people questions in Spanish. They quickly learned that Sevilla, that not only are Sevillanos friendly, but they also love talking about Seville. As a Spanish teacher, this was one of my favorite activities that we had the students do, to see them stop people on the streets and say, hola, tengo una pregunta, where they sort of, nervously push through their Spanish. And as I said, Sevillanos love talking about Sevilla. And so they were so excited to share their love for their city with our students. And it was also incredible to see our students walk away from those experiences with an increased sense of confidence, where they felt like, yeah, I think I made it through that. I asked my question clearly. They understood what I was saying. And so it was a beautiful activity to see them not only step outside of their comfort zones by traveling to Spain, but by also using this language. Our students also had the incredible opportunity to live with a homestay family. And so here are two of our students, Sarah and Joss, with their homestay mom, Doña Inma. But our students ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner with their homestay families, fully immersing themselves in the Sevilla experience. And so here's a photo of Doña Ima. The students apparently had incredible food. We had a group chat while we were in Spain. And so it was really cool that the students flooded the group chats with photos of what they ate that day, a vast difference than what they normally eat for school lunch. And so they were lovingly spoiled while we were in Seville. This is also an incredible opportunity. I strongly encourage our students to share a bit more about their culture and their background with their homestay families. In this study abroad experience, I thought it was really important that our students listen and learn from people's experiences, but also not be afraid to share more about their family and their culture. A majority of my students come from Caribbean households, Jamaica, Guyana, St. Lucia. And so this was an opportunity for them to share more about their backgrounds and their families. Another activity that I absolutely loved in Sevilla, we hosted what was called a mesa de intercambio, which is a table for exchange, where we introduced our students with other young people who live in Seville. And so this started with a pretty simple get to know you activity where students got to ask each other questions. What music do they listen to? What do they do for fun? What are they studying in school? And so here's a photo on the left of one of our students, Eli, with one of their students. And so it was really great to see our students build community with other young people. And so even though it started as a get to know you activity, it quickly evolved into a dance battle underneath las setas. And so it was really incredible to see our young people let loose and dance and connect with their new friends. We also got to explore the Real Alcázar. For those of you that are big Game of Thrones fans, this is known as Dorne. And so the city of Dorne in Game of Thrones was shot here in the Real Alcázar, which is sort of a royal palace with this, it's a museum with beautiful architecture, lots of incredible art. Also in the back, there are mazes. So we had students run around those mazes so that they could get lost in all of the Real Alcázar's wonders. And this is a photo of our students in front of La Giralda and the Catedral. The Catedral famously is known for where Christopher Columbus is buried. And so it was incredible to bring our students to see this experience, to see what it's like inside of the Catedral. And we also climbed all the way to the top of La Giralda. What I love about that experience is La Giralda does not have stairs. It is all by ramps. Back when La Giralda was constructed, when Muslims would ring the bell to acknowledge time for prayer, people would ascend and descend on horseback inside of the building. And so it was incredible to see our students sort of go up to the top through those winding ramps. We also had our students kayak on the Guadalquivir River. The Guadalquivir River runs right through Seville. And so a majority of our students have never been kayaking. And so again, pushing them outside of their comfort zones to be fully immersed in Sevilla and all of its magic. I will admit students sort of struggled with kayaking. I don't know if we mastered it, but it was an incredible opportunity and they loved it. We didn't just stay stuck in Seville. We traveled down south to a town called Cádiz along the coast in Spain. And here's a photo of our students in front of the Catedral de Cádiz. But this was also another incredible opportunity for students to see what else Spain had to offer. In Cádiz, we went to a location called the Cámara Obscura, or a dark camera, where students got to see all of Cádiz. In the Cámara Obscura, they have this camera that refracts light that allows you to zoom in and even see people walking down the streets in Cádiz. Cádiz has an incredible history, and so they led us through how some invasions happened in southern Spain. And once again, for our students to get a breathtaking view of the city from a very different perspective. And we have to have fun while we have these experiences. And so after going to museums and seeing the Cámara Obscura, we also spent some time at the beach. For some students, their first remark was, this was the clearest water that they had ever seen in their lives. And so it was great to just sit back and relax with our students by the water, where they also had a surfing lesson. I don't think any of our students had ever had the opportunity to surf. And so it was incredible to see them immediately jump on top of their boards and to take full advantage of this experience and learn how to surf. We didn't just stop at Cádiz, we traveled over to Granada, where our students got to see some more incredible architecture in southern Spain. Here we have a photo of the students at the Alhambra. The Alhambra is a 14th century palace that was built and then sort of left in the hills of Granada until eventually it was rediscovered, and it is now one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The Alhambra was absolutely breathtaking. It's one of my favorite places to visit in Spain. What I love about the Alhambra is in the walls are beautifully etched phrases and verses in Arabic to a point where it almost doesn't feel real. And so it's incredibly breathtaking. If you ever have the opportunity to travel to Granada, definitely check out the Alhambra and all of its incredible history. Inside of the Alhambra, we also have here the Palace of Charles V. And this was just, again, another incredible space where students got to see the beautiful flowers at the Alhambra, the gardens that are there, the pools. It was just nothing like they had ever experienced before. Back in Sevilla, we also had students do a bit of arts and crafts. We have some artistic students. And so here's a photo of them making what's called azulejos, or also known as tiles. And these were created as gifts for them to bring back home to their families. We also had students tour the Plaza de Toros in Sevilla. When it comes to bullfighting, it's a heavily debated topic. What I wanted our students to see was the history of bullfighting in Spain, but to also think about the violence that comes with it. And so I thought it was really important as an educator for our students to learn more about that cultural history, but then also turn it into a topic of conversation where we can talk about how we feel about bullfighting. We also took students to the Sevilla Football Club stadium where they got to come out into the arena as if they were football players. So this is them at the Ramon Pizjuan Stadium. And also what I love in Sevilla is the Parque de Maria Luisa. Here's a photo of one of our students, Hakeem. In the Parque de Maria Luisa, there's a section where it's really known for their pigeons and their birds. And so you could buy a small bag of food and feed the pigeons. And so the kids got really excited and they were like, yeah, I want to play with the pigeons and get them to land all over me. And so we had what was like a Home Alone moment. I made the Home Alone reference to our students. They did not get the reference. But for me, this was just something that reminded me so much of New York. And again, getting them to step outside of their comfort zone and to have a good time. And then this brings us to the Plaza de España. The Plaza de España in Sevilla is absolutely beautiful. It was built for the Ibero-American Expo. And so in the Plaza de España, there are beautiful fountains. There are also beautiful tiles located throughout, but this was an excellent place for us to walk around and get to see some more incredible architecture in Sevilla. Once again, we got to show students around the Plaza de España and to notice the beautiful tiles that they had just made a couple of days prior. Here's some more beautiful photos. We honestly use this as a huge photo op for our students to just explore the different parts of the Plaza de España and to send photos back home to their family and friends. In the Plaza de España, you could also go boat rowing. Again, our students don't often have opportunities to be on the water. And so this was just an incredible opportunity for them to see the Plaza de España from a different perspective. And so during that 2-week experience, I can say it was incredible to see our students transform in even that short amount of time. Some of our students had never been on an airplane. Some students had never traveled to Europe. Actually, I take that back. None of our students had ever had the opportunity to travel to Europe. And so it was incredible that this 2-week experience had inspired them to take this experience and think about where else they could go in the world, and that they truly deserve the world too. And so that is that for my presentation. I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll actually get ready to transition over into the Q&A. I have some students here with me who want to share about their experience in Sevilla. So, estudiantes, vamos chicos, if you could begin to turn your cameras on and wave hi to people and say hello. I'm really excited to have them here. I'll start by introducing them. I'll start with Sarah Angus. Sarah Angus is a rising senior. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining. Good to see you. We also have Eli Martinez. Hey, Eli.
Hi.
Hola, hola, hola. Eli is also a rising senior, soon to be in the 12th grade. We have Manuelis Scott. Manuelis, say hello to everyone.
Hi, guys.
Perfect. Manuelis also is a rising senior, headed to the 12th grade. We have Jaylene Willie. Hey, Jaylene.
Hi.
Jaylene is also a rising senior. And then last but not least, we have Joss Janelle Wilson. Hey, Joss.
Hi.
Perfect. Now, Joss, different than everyone else, Joss is not a rising senior because Joss just graduated from high school last week. So I want to start by giving a round of applause. Congratulations, Joss. How you feel?
I feel pretty good. I'm excited to go into college.
Yeah? That's awesome. And then I apologize. We have one more incredible student, a rising senior. We have Jasmine Smith. Jasmine, I apologize. Don't be mad at me.
Hi.
Hello. Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining. It is late on a Monday night, but I know that you all had an incredible experience. And so I'd love for you to share more about your 2 weeks in Spain with our listeners. And so Jay, I'm gonna start with you. Jay, talk to everyone. How did it feel to travel across the Atlantic Ocean on this big plane? Because you had been on a plane before, correct?
Yes, I have been on a plane before, but I went when I was 2, so it's not much of it's really any memory. But I was very nervous traveling across the Atlantic Ocean. But although I was nervous, I was very excited because I was about to explore a whole different place. It was very, it was gonna be very, it's gonna be new to me, so I was excited, very excited.
That's awesome. And yeah, Joss, could you talk to me a bit more about traveling across the Atlantic Ocean? How did that feel? And also, had you traveled prior to this trip?
Traveling across the ocean, that was something very new to me. Like I have been on a plane for like more than like 2 hours. We were on that plane for like 9 hours, and like that was crazy to me. I never thought that could happen. And I have traveled on a plane prior to this, but like this was like a whole new different level of like traveling to me. After this whole Spain trip, I was like an expert on like how to travel in the airport. So it was like something really interesting to me. And it was like a new experience. Really cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank both of you. And Jasmine, I'm going to come to you for this next question. Jasmine, if you could share with everyone, were you nervous about traveling to Spain? How did you feel about partaking on this program?
I was a little bit nervous because I've traveled out of the country before, but it wasn't across like the Atlantic Ocean. And going to stay with strangers that I haven't met prior, I feel like that was very scary. And I was going with a bunch of students from my school, but I didn't really know them at the time. But so I was a little nervous.
And I hope that by the end of the program, you weren't still nervous with living with your homestay family and your new friends, right?
I wasn't nervous. It was fun.
Yeah, awesome. Good. I'm glad to hear that. And Sarah, I'm actually going to ask you the same question. Were you nervous about traveling to Spain? Like, what did that feel like for you?
Um, Traveling wasn't the scary part about that. I have been on a plane before, not going so far, but I traveled a lot when I was younger, so being on a plane wasn't so scary. But something that did kind of, rack my nerves was living with people that I didn't know. But when we got there, my homestay mom was actually really nice. She had a son there. He showed us around like the neighborhood that we're in. And there were two other girls living there from Italy, also studying abroad. And everyone there was so nice. So everything felt very homey, even though I didn't know people that well. So the nerves went away as soon as we got there and met people.
Yeah. And nerves are natural. I remember talking with you all about this and exploring new places. But hopefully after this first experience, you all are now more excited to have more of these experiences. Sarah, I'm going to stick with you for this next question. If you could share some of your favorite things about traveling in Spain, maybe one or two things, what are some things that you think will really stay with you forever?
For one, when we went surfing, I never thought I would surf, especially growing up in New York. You don't think, oh, I'm gonna go surfing today. Like, no, it's just concrete everywhere, buildings and so and so. And also growing up, most of the time when I saw someone surfing, it was someone that wasn't of color. So to be able to do something that's not normally within my race, I'm not going to say that there are things specific to races, but knowing that I got to branch out and do something new like that was really exciting. And also making tiles. That was really exciting for me. I have an artsy side, but I don't tap into it very much. But when we got there, it was really fun to like make paint and make a tile, create a picture, and I actually have mine here. I drew a little salsa lady. So, you know, and currently my family is building a house in Guyana, and so I have this tile, and my dad told me that once it's up, we would put the tile in the house and I would have a piece of Sevilla with me in Guyana. So, you know, to be so international, just it was amazing. Learning to surf, I know I'm definitely going to do it again. And making a tile, I know I have a piece of Sevilla with me here.
That's beautiful. Y'all should have seen Sarah. She was like a guppy. As soon as she got in that water, she knew exactly what to do, hopped on that surfboard. Notice in the video, you did not see any videos of me surfing because I wiped out the entire time. However, Sarah rocked it. And so that's awesome. I'm glad that you had that incredible experience. And then the homestays. So I know that we spoke a bit about it. Eli, I'm gonna come to you for this question. How was it like living with your homestay family? How was the food? Talk with us a little bit about that.
Well, I stayed with this lady called Doña Aurora. She's a bit older, but she was very lovely and treated me like one of her own. And I have like some experience. My parents are both immigrants, so I have some Spanish experience, but there was some words that I couldn't really translate. One of which was when she said ducha, I didn't know what that was, and I had to look at my friends and they didn't know either, because my mom usually says regadera. And so I was very confused, and it was a very funny moment for us. And she was a former chef, and so the food was really, really good. One of my favorite dishes was sopa licuada de verduras. It looked pretty, it didn't look very appeasing to me. Me and my friends Akeem and Murphy, who I was staying with, we were scared to try it, but when we tried it, it tasted really good, and we got seconds immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, as I stated earlier, the students flooded the group chat with the different types of foods that we ate. In the first week of Sevilla, we also took students out for tapas, where they had to try some dishes like salmorejo, which is a cold tomato soup. It was great to see the students freak out about some of the foods and then realize, wait, this is actually pretty good. And so, Eli, I'm glad that you got to try some different dishes. Joss, could you share with us a bit more about your homestay mom and what the food was like?
So my homestay mom, her name was Doña Emma. Me and Sarah had the same homestay mom, and like she said, she was really nice. The hospitality was really good, and she cooked really good food. Like I loved all her dishes. She made us like pizza, pasta. She made us chicken. She made us burgers. And my favorite dish that she made us was called huevos con patatas, which means like eggs and potatoes. But it was like a tortilla omelet. It was like she made it inside a pan, and she would put the eggs in, the potatoes, and it would all like come together. So like something that tasted so delicious that I still want to this day. And I don't even know how to make it. I wish I knew how to make it, but I don't. And that was like one of my favorite dishes. And I wish I could go back to Spain, but I can't. But I'm going to one day. One day I'm going to. But it was amazing. The homestay was great. She took care of us. Her family took care of us. And it just felt like home, even though you weren't at home. Like, you know, it was great.
Yeah, and speaking of food, one of the experiences that we did this summer, we had a paella cooking class where students got to learn how to make paella. which is sort of similar to a jambalaya, right, that we have here in the States. So for students to learn how to make that, but then also hopefully bring that recipe home. Did anyone try to make paella back in the States? Did you, Joss?
I tried to. It did come out like how it was in Spain, but it was close though. It was close. It was close.
Okay, cool. Jay, I'll come back to you for this question. Jay, if you could share with the people on the call, why do you think it's important for young people to travel?
I think it's important for young people to travel because it provides an opportunity for them to see new places and to meet new people, and it also gives them the ability to adapt to new environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of adapting, how did you feel adapting to Sevilla? I know by like day 2, day 3, students knew how to get from their homestay to classes. How was that sort of adapting for you?
Honestly, it was very easy because the first day you took us from our home to the school, and by that time it was like this. We knew exactly how to get there, how to get back. Like if something happened, we know exactly where to run straight home, we know exactly where to go.
Awesome. Thank you. Manuelis, I'll ask you the same question. Why do you think it's important for young people to travel?
I think it's important for young people to travel to expand their worldview outside of what they already know. For like the example you had made earlier about Semana Santa and the Nazarenos, like, you know, American history, we'd see that as shocking. But if we go out, like outside of the US and explore, then we'll be more tolerant of different, you know, traditions and more understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm actually going to throw this question out to all of you. Where to next? You had this incredible travel experience. And so if you could choose anywhere in the world to go to next, where would you go and why? And I know we didn't practice this with everyone, but I'm going to go through with all of you. I'm curious to hear where you want to go. Jay, I'll start with you. Where are you taking Mr. Shambley?
I would like to take actually all of you guys, if I can, to Seoul, South Korea, because I feel like it'll be a great opportunity for us to indulge in their culture and their fashion, their technology, their food, their nightlife. Because I heard that their nightlife is also like Sevilla. They did not sleep at all, so I don't think we will sleep either. But I feel like it'll be new to us because we're not used to places like that.
Great, awesome. So we're going to Seoul, South Korea. Sarah, where are you taking us all to next?
Nowhere specific, but anywhere in China. I recently watched all the Karate Kid movies. You guys may be more familiar with the older ones, the one with Daniel LaRusso. No offense, no offense to anyone.
Sarah, did you just call us old?
And the newer one with Jaden Smith, that one, I recently watched all of them, and watching it now older, you notice a lot more things that you don't notice when you're younger. And something I noticed was that even in the small things that you do every day, there's a story behind it. And in Chinese culture, there's a story for everything. They have this really interesting Valentine's Day that's about a girl and a boy who wanted to be together, but they couldn't. And so someone divided them with a river, and that birds made a bridge to connect them once a year. And it was just so beautiful to know that that's something that's a part of Chinese culture. So I would definitely love to be there, know more stories, and for all of us to learn these stories.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm noticing a trend. We're starting in the East, we're going to South Korea, we're in Seoul, then we're going over to China. We're hopping all around China. Eli, I'll come to you. Eli, where are we going to next?
It's a bit of an odd choice, but I want to go to El Salvador. That's where my dad's from. And recently, it's been getting safer because of the new president. He's made a mega prison for a lot of gang members that were there. And my parents were usually like very they didn't want me to go to El Salvador because it was really dangerous, but now a lot of people are saying it's safer now and people are going there more. So I want to go there. My dad's from El Salvador. I've never been there. And yeah, I want to see my family.
Perfect. Thank you. That's beautiful. So we're going back to Central America using our Spanish in El Salvador. Manu, I'll come to you next. Where are we going?
I'd like to go to Italy because when I was staying with my homestay, Doña Rocio, there were two other girls also staying that were from Italy. And we were like, they were speaking Italian. My homestay mother was speaking Spanish, but like in a different dialect in Spain. I speak Spanish myself, but like, the different dialects, trying to figure that out. And I don't know, Italian just seemed, it's really similar to Spanish. So I feel like I could pick it up easily.
Yeah, Italy's also beautiful. Right after this call, I'll share with you, because I think Italy was like a common answer at first. And so I'll send you all some resources around Italy. Jasmine, where are we going?
I want to travel to France because I feel like France and America, they're kind of somewhat similar. It's just like a language barrier, and they have like more of an ancient like history and their sites and different things of that nature. I feel like it'll be good for me to go outside of Spanish and English, something that's also common in the world.
Perfect. Joss, big senior, well now college freshman. Joss, you'll actually be in college in the fall, so you'll have an opportunity to look for study abroad opportunities. Any place that you're interested in?
Well, obviously my first choice is Spain because I would love to go back. But my second choice is similar to Manuel Lee, so I would like to go to Italy because I know that like it'd be good for me to study art there and to like get that experience that would like help me grow in art and especially in the art community. So I just go to Italy. Italy would be nice for me. Nothing.
Perfect. Y'all, you already know this, you've heard this from me. I could not have chosen a better group of students to have this first experience with. I'm so glad this trip to Spain changed your life and made you think about where else in the world you could go to. I hope that you all got bitten by the travel bug. We're all going to new places after this and exploring the world. So I hope that you keep this with you and just use it to power you forward. So thank you. Thank you so much for being on the call and sharing your experiences with everyone. I know that some of you have exams in the morning, so I'm gonna go ahead and say goodbye, but thank you so much for your time, y'all. And Gabe, that was it. I'm so glad that our students had incredible experiences. It's also really great to hear from their parents, right? Even though the students had this experience, it didn't just stay with them. We had families excited about traveling as well. One parent specifically, she said that this program made her a better parent. And that was something I didn't imagine, but her children never traveled before. And so knowing that they were able to go to Spain and have this incredible opportunity, she knew that they could have these other opportunities as well. And so she began looking into some more international opportunities for her sons. And so it's just been really fantastic to see how families have taken this experience and also how our students have grown so much from this. And so if I could encourage everyone to check us out on social media, our handle is Teens of Color Abroad. Our website is also teensofcolorabroad.org if you'd like to learn more. I know that we'll follow up this call with some links to resources. But definitely take a look at what we're working on. And I'm really excited for our next trip, which is happening in a couple of weeks. We're bringing a group of 15 students also back to Sevilla, Spain for a 2-week experience. And that should be really fantastic. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lamar, for for sharing not only your experiences with us, but also your work. And a huge thank you to the TOCA alumni that took time out of their Monday nights as they're approaching exams to spend with us and to share their stories. It definitely makes me miss teaching high schoolers, and it's a special thing to get to experience travel again through their eyes as people that are relatively new to it. So we have a Q&A. We have some great questions from our audience tonight. Before we get to that, I have just a quick word from our sponsor, which is that if you or maybe a student in your life are going to be going on a first trip to Europe soon, tonight's show is brought to you by Rick's original travel skill handbook, Europe Through the Back Door. It goes through all of the travel skills that you need to know about getting transportation, planning an itinerary, how do I make my phone work abroad, and it even includes a very special essay on student travel by a certain Monday Night Travel host. So be sure to check that out. It's a great resource for any new travelers or just anybody wanting to brush up on their travel skills. All right, Lamar, we have some questions for you now. You asked questions to the students and now the tables have turned. Firstly, just a few general questions from the audience. I think you may have mentioned this, but if you could tell us again, how many students does TOCA serve and how do these students get connected to the program?
Yeah, excellent question. So this past summer was our first study abroad program ever. And so we brought 12 students from Brooklyn to Sevilla, Spain. And then also these students all come from, for the first cohort, I wanted to work with students who know me and families who know me. And so these are my former students, but our hope is in the future, we'll be able to expand to serve more students. But again, between our in-person experiences and our virtual programming, we've served over 1,000 youth across the US.
And we also have some people wondering, and you already kind of touched on this, but we had quite a few people that were really excited about this work and were wondering either how they can contribute directly to TOCA or how you would encourage them to kind of contribute to similar types of efforts in their communities if they're, you know, on the opposite side of the country. What advice would you have to anybody that wants to just generally promote this type of work?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're interested in supporting TOCA, we are a 501c3. And so all donations are tax deductible. You can find the donation link on our website at teensofcolorabroad.org. I will give a shout out to another organization called One World Now, based out of Seattle, Washington. So when we came back from Spain, we were invited to the Youth Assembly at the UN. Huge thank you to Daniel Obst from AFS Intercultural Programs, where our students got to connect with the other young people from One World Now, the name of the organization. And so it was really cool to see our students talk about their experience in Spain with other young people who live on the other side of the country, to talk about their experience with travel and learning languages. And so it's really incredible. There are now a few organizations that are focused on student travel and making these travel experiences happen for students. Definitely, I would encourage everyone to look into it and giving young people these experiences. I will say it still blows my mind to see students go from incredibly nervous, hesitant to use their Spanish, nervous about meeting people, to then by the end of the program, totally open and connecting with other students. As one student remarked earlier, for these young people, they had known each other beforehand, but they weren't really close friends. And by the end of the program, they were calling each other bestie, and they stuck alongside each other this year and really developed friendships that'll last forever. So I'm really proud of all of our students. Traveling as a young person is not easy. And so knowing that our young people had this experience, I know for a fact they're excited to continue to look for these experiences in college.
Lamar, like I said, it's always a privilege. One thing that I always loved about teaching is that there's something that maybe you have you learned a long time ago, you've experienced dozens of times, but you get to experience it again for the first time through the eyes of the students. And I'm wondering, what's one of your favorite vicarious experiences that you've had while leading trips, of getting to experience a culture again for the first time through the eyes of your students?
Yeah, I vividly remember my homestay family. That was something that stuck with me for my study abroad experience. Unfortunately, I lost touch with my homestay family. I wish I had kept in touch with them. But knowing that I had lost that contact, I encouraged our students this time to keep in touch with their families, to offer a gift when we land in Sevilla, so that the homestay family would have something that they could always remember from our students. And so for me, my favorite thing was seeing the students organically send messages in the chat about their homestay families, just taking care of them as if they were their own parents. I will say, for their families back here in the States, when they heard that their children would be staying with homestay families, they were very hesitant because they didn't know who these people were. And then in the middle of the program, they started getting texts from their kids about what their homestay family was making for them, where they took them to, if they took them grocery shopping at a local supermarket. And so seeing them have that experience with new families just made it, it was one of the numerous instances where I realized this is just all worth it. And so I'm really glad that they made that person-to-person connection. I think travel is transformational, but it's something extra special when you're able to connect with people across racial lines, across cultural lines, for our students' case, across age differences. And so that was something that just made my heart grow exponentially.
I still, my favorite part of my semester abroad was getting to know my Spanish mama, and I fortunately am still in touch with her. My sister actually went and stayed with her just last weekend, and I got to FaceTime with them, and it was very special for me. One viewer had asked, do the host families speak any English at all, or are these students really thrown into the deep end?
They are thrown into the deep end. The families don't speak much English. I often relate it to putting floaties on kids' arms and pushing them into the deep end, where they felt like they were drowning, that they didn't understand after the first couple of days. But then after that, they were like, wait, no, I do understand what they're saying. And they start to pick up on common phrases, right? Repeated phrases that their homestay families were saying. And so this was a language immersion program. The homestay families didn't speak any English. And so our students had to try their best to work across that barrier.
And what do you think it is about language programs in particular, and getting students to speak a different language with people? What do you think that adds beyond just doing I did 2 study abroad trips. One was in England, one was in Spanish. Or in Spain, where I had to speak Spanish, and they were very different. What do you think that the language aspect adds to the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think language is a tool for community building. Currently, we have in the United States, we have the second largest Spanish speaking population in the world. And by 2050, we're gonna have the largest in the entire world. And so in my mind, I am thinking, how are we preparing our students for a linguistically diverse society if we're not encouraging language learning? And so it's been really great to see our students practice this language and then connect with people, right? And I think those human connections is what makes travel really stick with our students. I can say in my example, for example, when I studied abroad in Sevilla, I went to a mesa de intercambio where I got to meet students who were traveling from all over the world and in Seville, Spain. And eventually I made friends with local Sevillanos, where I got to practice my Spanish so much, and to a point where one of the friends that I made during this semester in Sevilla, she came from France. And so we were speaking mostly in Spanish. She now lives in New York, and I officiated her wedding 2 weeks ago,
Huh.
which was an incredible experience to re-meet her family. Her mom had visited her in Sevilla, and so I had met her back then. And then now fast forward 14 years, I officiated her wedding. And so I think it's those lifelong friendships that really make the language learning aspect just really, really meaningful.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's, I mean, we always say about travel that it's the people that you meet along the way that are the most important aspect. And you never know how those people are going to impact you or where they're going to pop up in your life in the future. One thing that I've been interested about, Rick talks a lot about when we are traveling. Yes, we are experiencing the other cultures, but we're also ambassadors for our cultures and our home countries. And I'm curious, why do you think, we hear about these TOCA and the amazing work it does. And I think, my first thought is, wow, how great for these kids that they get to experience the world. They deserve the world too, as you say. But I think also the world deserves them, and the world deserves a fuller picture of what our nation is. How do you feel like, I guess, what are your thoughts on why representation is also important from the perspective of us travelers being ambassadors for the United States?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. I immediately got a flashback to a conversation that I had with some adult friends in Spain, where this was in 2018. So before, a lot of things started happening in the States in 2020 around racial reckoning. And my friend in Spain, he said, well, I thought racism ended in the US, right? Didn't you all have a Black president? You had Barack Obama. What do you mean racism still exists? And that was an incredible opportunity for me to use my Spanish as a tool for communication and explain my own experiences and my family's experiences around racism, around prejudice. And so I think it's important that these young students of color begin to have this language learning sort of journey happen so that they can start to advocate for themselves and share their stories. As I shared earlier, the majority of our students are from the Caribbean, right? And so what does it mean to be Jamaican? What do you all eat at home? What are some cultural differences? And so our students were able to communicate that with their homestay families so that families, even as adults, could learn more about the world. And so, I think it was really incredible to see students use this language as a tool for community building with the folks that they had met in Spain.
I think it's interesting because we in the United States at least are all brought up in a very diverse immigrant nation where at least a lot of times issues of diversity are kind of at the forefront of our collective consciousness in ways that it just isn't for some of these more nation states with more homogenous populations in Europe. And so I think that is fantastic that you can have those conversations with people in Europe, and we educate the people that we travel with, that we travel to as well. Time for a couple more questions, yes. Lamar. I'm wondering, you talked about the families of your students, and I know from being a teacher that sometimes the families will tell you things that the students won't. What has been the feedback from the families of these students? What are things that you've heard from the parents of seeing kind of the impact of these experiences? They see, I guess you also see these kids day in, day out, but they see them at home in a different forum. And what do they say about how these experiences have transformed their kids?
Another excellent question. So as you could probably imagine, when I initially announced this program to families, we had some families that were really excited about it and excited to jump in and for their students to have this experience. And there were also some families who were like, Mr. Shambley, I'm going to be honest with you, we're not going to do this. I I am terrified to let my child travel across an entire ocean and to be far away from me for 2 weeks. And I had to listen to that. I told families that is absolutely natural. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that was the first thing I wanted to do, is to let them know having those nerves is natural. You're a caring parent that wants to make sure your child is safe. And so I told families, what I'm asking for you to do is, I'm not asking for $1 of your money. I am asking for you to make dinner and to invite me over so that we could get to know each other. And I started community building. I just started showing my face, speaking to families about the power of this program, eventually till I won over some of their confidence. There was one parent in particular who I had to have 5 or 6 calls with him. This is a dad. And until the day of, where we left for Spain, where I had to square up, shoulder, look him directly in the eyes and say, you know, Mr. K, I'll do everything I can to keep your child safe. And he nervously accepted it. And now he's one of our biggest advocates. I sent numerous selfies of me and his daughter in class, traveling around. He got to hear directly from her. And now he's one of our spokespeople to say, hey, I was not interested in this. I was scared. And I now see what this has done for my daughter. And so to your question about what are parents seeing, I think this is absolutely transformational for students, especially during this point in time, thinking of the past 3 years and COVID taking over the world, and students mostly being under the watchful eye of their parent, yet they're preparing for college, right? And so I think it's important that young people have a practice at independence before they go off to college. And so many of our students came back just like excited and amped up to do this again when they go to college. And so I've seen students now, their grades significantly increase because they have this sense of confidence and independence that they didn't have before. One of my like flashback memories is walking through the Albaicin in Granada and seeing the views and seeing the beautiful architecture and meeting people, where one student looked at me and he said, Mr. Shambley, I should write about this for my college application essay, right? And it's like, yeah, you absolutely should. But he just started to piece together the classroom, so theory with practice and actually seeing it directly in front of him. And I think that students needed to have that experience where they're not just sitting behind a desk, conjugating the same verb over and over and over again, whereas they were having conversations with people and making mistakes. And I think that is just really necessary for our young people as they start to think about, okay, what happens after high school, whether they go to college or, you know, make whatever decision works best for them, that they know that wherever they go, they can do it and they'll be just fine. They've been in situations where they were nervous, where they didn't know what to expect, and they were able to be flexible. And that's one of the beauties of travel, is learning how to be flexible and living fully in the experience. And so getting those kids out of New York City and putting them in a completely different world safely in an academic way, I think just really was the experience that they needed.
And I mean, that's what we have with many of our tour members, people that come on Rick Steves Europe tours. It's giving them the confidence and the tools that they need to maybe have more of a guided experience, and then know that, leave with that confidence that they can, you know, either do it again or maybe plan it themselves. So I think it's incredible that your students are getting that at such a young age. We had one viewer ask Lamar, do you have any plans to expand to other destinations, or what are your hopes for the future of TOCA?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I absolutely would love to expand into other countries and maybe even other disciplines. In my teaching experience, I've seen students gravitate towards language, but I've also seen students really lean into art. And so I would love to imagine, what does this program look like in a different country where students get to practice their artistic skills while also studying languages. So I would absolutely love to expand into other countries. I know the young people on the call are a little bit disappointed with me. So I'm actually leaving the classroom full time to focus on TOCA and to figure out how do we make this a resource for students across the country. And so I'm definitely looking into other places. For me as an educator, I want to make sure that I go and visit to see what it's like, to see how young people would feel in these places, but I would love to expand into other countries and other languages.
Well, I know that your students on the call are going to be very sad to lose you, but I'm confident that there will be many more dozen students that stand to gain from that change. So we wish you well on that. And I want to finish with the same question that you asked your students, which is, Lamar, where are we going next? What's the next place you want to explore?
Oh man, Gabe. So I actually do have some travel plans for this year. So my friend who I officiated her wedding, she's having her larger wedding in France. I've never been to France. Even when I studied abroad in Spain, I never made it. And so I'm going to Paris for the first time to see the Eiffel Tower, to eat everything in Paris. I'll be traveling south to Toulouse as well. After that, going to Barcelona and Berlin, Germany, which I'm really excited about. I've never been to Germany. And I'm incredibly looking forward to the first week of November. I will go to Buenos Aires in Argentina. I've never been to Buenos Aires, so I will get to spend a week there and then also take a ferry to go across to Uruguay, to Montevideo, to explore that. And I'm so excited, even as a Spanish speaker, to see that part of the world is drastically different than here in the US. It's drastically different than Sevilla, Spain. So I'm looking forward to having those experiences this summer and early this fall.
Oh, Buenos Aires is like #1 on my list of places I want to go outside of Europe. Of course, with my line of work, I always have a lot of European destinations lined up, but that sounds incredible. I hope to hear how you like it. And if you need any good guidebooks for Europe, just let me know. I can hook you up.
I think I might need a Germany one. So
okay, yeah.
Let's make that happen.
No, we'll work on it.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Lamar, thank you so much for taking time out of a day off at the end of a busy school year to speak with us, to share your work. Thank you for bringing your students here. They were delights. I wish I could spend a week in Spain with them. And we wish you well in your future endeavors, and maybe we'll have you back to talk with us sometime in the future.
Awesome. Thank you again for this opportunity. It really means a lot for our young people to speak about their experiences. This is incredible. Thank you.
All right. Well, hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto.
All right. And thank you to all of you for taking time to join us this evening. We're so glad that you were able to be a part of this conversation, and we hope that you will join us in our upcoming summer shows. So as I said, next week, we are taking our first ever Monday night travel trip to Asia. We are going to go to Japan with guidebook author Jonathan DeHart. We are going to take July 3rd off, as we'll all be celebrating the 4th of July extended weekend. But we are going to celebrate our nation on July 10th with a presentation on the U.S. national parks with U.S. National Park expert Micah Meyer. That will be on July 10th, and it will be posted on the website tomorrow. So be sure to check back then. Thank you all once more for joining us, and have an excellent night.